Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is going to be Roar Sheppard, and we're going to be talking about 2012 in the Mayan calendar. And this is a topic I happen to have a little bit of familiarity with. I'm aware of the fact that some people think that that's going to be the end of the world altogether. Others believe it's going to be a new beginning for everybody on Earth. And still others believe that you can't tell when the end of time is going to be because the Bible says you can't. So we're going to see where Roar is going with this here in his new book. The Universe Speaks of Love and Pain of 2012 to 2025. So, Roar, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. And, I got to tell you, this here is a subject, as I'm pretty sure you already know, is something that has become very popular in recent years.
It is. I'm still trying to put my finger on the pulse of the subject in America. I just returned to America. I've been abroad for almost 15 years. I was living in South Korea, and I was just in South Africa where I published the book and was doing a tour, giving various lectures and seeing the response there. And I've only been in America for about a month now, so I'm just looking at the response and the pulse of the situation here in the States.
Well, looking at your title, I noticed you got a time frame of 2012 to 2025. So that's something that's really new to what I've been seeing. Most people want to say that it's going to be a new beginning, but few people put a little window of time in there. That's like, do you expect that there might be a period of turmoil that you think should end by 2025?
Well, if you look at a lot of the books out there, there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of information out there. A lot of it's coming from various different sources. A lot of it comes from sources that were mentioned thousands of years ago, such as the Mayan calendar, which were just giving a skeleton of what is to come in the future. But if you want to know what's going to come, you need to get closer to that time period and access the information that's coming down nowadays. So we're accessing the information that's coming out nowadays. And what we're seeing is that it's going to be the future is going to be a beautiful period of love and peace and the type of new era that we've all dreamed about. But it's not going to be right away. It's going to be some pretty heavy challenges and pain that we're going to have to go through to get to that period. Yesterday was the 11/11/11 day, and so many people thought that was the day of spiritual evolution. And I wrote on many places throughout the internet yesterday that congratulating them for celebrating that day and for praying for the earth and for human evolution. But sorry, it's not going to be that easy. This is a graduation ceremony for the planet Earth and for human beings. And we have to pass our study. We have to go through these challenges and prepare for them, for the era that's coming. And so as you see, it doesn't just end in 2025. It's a process, and it will come to fruition by 2025. So
that will just be like a buoy marker, and things should be more or less getting into swing by that time for the way things are going to be in the new era.
Everything will reach its fruition by 2025. The Earth will have reached. The Earth will have reached at least the fifth level. It's not just the fifth ascension. The Earth is actually scheduled to go to a much higher level. That depends on how evolved we are and how our consciousness is by that time. So it'll be finished by then, but the crisis and the challenges that we're going to have to face, we're already into them now. We're already facing natural disasters now. We're already facing uneasiness in economics, politics, food, energy. So already there's an uneasiness everywhere in society. People are just unable to actually put their finger on it. But if you look at it in a much wider picture, this is a transition that is going on right now. And it's a transition for us to let go of the old civilization and go to the new. And as we hang on to that fight, that struggle is going on. It's releasing tension everywhere. And so that's why you're feeling this uneasiness everywhere. But not only that, is you're seeing that the Earth itself, Mother Gaia, I don't know if you believe in that, but Mother Gaia, the Earth itself is a living organism just like we are. And as a living organism, it feels, it breathes, it thinks. It also has its own will and intention. And as it's been sick for a long time, it's got cancer, it's very ill, and so it needs to purify itself and balance itself. And the Earth's process of balance, of purification, is natural disasters. So these natural disasters will continue, and other types of uneasiness will continue at all levels, and they will continue to intensify. And how we respond to that would be the next few years before the actual Earth begins to shift as well.
Okay, now I heard you mention something of the nature of a fifth ship, and I might be grabbing way out at straws, but when you mentioned that number 5, the first thing that came to my mind was Helena Blavatsky, who mentioned the 5 root races over a period of time, and I couldn't help but wonder, was there some kind of a connection, like you get a new root race with each level of ascension?
I'm not familiar with her work, but I'll tell you the basic knowledge that I look at it as. As we see it, there are 10 10-dimensional levels in the universe, and each level is different. And we're on a third-dimensional planet. A third-dimensional planet is a place that's a material planet, and a fourth-dimensional planet is where souls go to reincarnate after they die. And so you're basically stuck in this cycle. Now, the Earth is a very, very special planet where all of us are actually souls. We're seeds from somewhere in the universe. And because we have this strong passion to evolve, everyone here and all of your listeners out there, that's our one uniting point. We have this great passion to evolve, so we came down here to study on a great planet like the Earth. But to get back to the universe, we have to cleanse our karma and go back. And to become a citizen of the universe, that's the first level of the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is when the body is called a semi-ethereal body. It's a half physical body and a half spiritual body. That's the fifth dimension. And from the sixth dimension, you enter into just a fully ethereal body. And then it just goes up, seventh dimension, eighth dimension. Then you start to become more of a light body. And then you start to enter the universe itself by the 10th dimension. So these are different dimensional modes that I'm referring to. Like a planet like Ceres is a fifth dimension, and a planet like Pleiades is a sixth dimension, if you're aware of those.
Well, I've heard of the planets, but I wasn't aware that there were different dimensions, although I have had guests on my show that said that they were, channels for the Pleiades, and according to them, their life forms were more of a astral type of body.
Yeah, as I said, there are semi-ethereal bodies for fifth and sixth levels, and when you go beyond it, it's interesting because there are different cosmic beings depending on the levels. Generally, in the Western culture, the cosmic beings that we are in contact with are fifth and sixth dimensional cosmic beings. The reason for that is because those are beings who've made material cultures before, and so they have an interest in material culture and material civilization and technology. So a lot of the technology that we have on the planet comes from our contact with them. But in the East, China, Korea, Japan, those places are in contact with cosmic beings from the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensions who aren't interested in material development. They're more interested in spiritual development. That's why you have conversations like what is spiritual enlightenment, what is awakening, that comes from those areas because those cosmic beings are not so interested in material.
That's pretty interesting because I've also had guests on my show that we've talked about string theories and quantum mechanics and, well, we talked about the fact that there were different dimensions during all these series shows, though. We never really covered much material about what these dimensions were made of or what they were like. And from what I'm gathering from you, if I understand correctly, is that these other dimensions were, they're not as densely material as we are. They're, which I've also heard that, all material matter is really energy at a slower rate. So they would be like a higher rate, vibration of energy then, wouldn't they?
Well, you're catching the point very quickly. Basically, the standard of evolution is based on energy, and the highest form of energy is based on light energy, on how light it is. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Well, yeah,
so
you
it depends
cut out
on how
for
light
just
you are, not heavy.
I'm sorry, right?
Okay, I'll start from the beginning.
Didn't mean to talk over you. I was just going to say you cut out for a minute.
Okay, so you caught the main point that basically the higher dimensions are based on how light the energy is, and actually the standard of evolution is based on that. So they said that a soul, when it dies, depending on how light it is, it goes higher and higher and higher. So if you have a lot of attachment to materials or to desires or to emotions, the soul won't rise very highly. But if someone like a Gandhi or like a Jesus figure, someone who's very light, or a Mother Teresa or something who's very light in their heart will rise up much higher. That's why the Eastern arts of breathing and stuff are very important, so we don't attach ourselves to materials. So that a fifth or sixth dimension is still focusing on a highly advanced material. It's still focused on material. So the light you get, if you're able to empty those materials, then you'd go much, much higher and be a much lighter soul. So that's part of the meaning of 2012 too, is the shift going into a new dimension. To enter that resonance of a fifth dimension, then you yourself have to have that consciousness. So right now, the decluttering, the detaching from material possessions, the material civilization, attachments to relationships, so it's very important. So we have that consciousness and we can rise up.
Yeah, that's really very interesting, because I've done quite a bit of study in religion, spirituality, and ancient mythology and stuff like that. And from what I'm hearing of you, it may sound a little weird to you, but some of it sounds like material that you can actually read in the Bible, but it's just worded a different way, in other words.
I mean, everyone throughout the history of the Earth has been able to tap into the universe. They tap into wavelengths, they tap into frequencies, depending on whether that was their karmic connection or whether the universe had a message for them. There are those from the East who are able to, that's what the East does. You actually develop a technique through yourself that originally all human beings, right, had their chakras and their DNA much more expanded, so they were able to tap into the wavelengths of the universe. So, but then as we got into material, our chakras and stuff closed. So, but through breathing or something like that, you can reopen those and have a connection with the universe. that's why in the East, something like have you ever heard of the Book of Changes, the I Ching?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so those kind of books were pulled down. That information is pulled down through breathing. So someone like a Jesus Christ was able to, have access to universe teachings. Like any other spiritual teaching, spiritual religion, you have access to those up to a point, and you pull them down. So in essence, they're all coming from the same root of the universe. So obviously, every book out there is going to have some aspects of similarity. Even now, everyone talking about 2012, they're very similar on many, many levels. It's just that whether it's coming from the 5th level, the 7th level, the 9th level, is going to be a difference of direction and compass and specific points to it. The overall picture, anyone who taps into anything from the 5th dimension will have an overall picture of it. But as I said in my book, we are a group of about 20 people who've done breathing for over 10 years. And so it's not done through channeling. It's done through having the ability to communicate with different beings in the universe, not only at the 5th dimension, but the 8th dimension, all the way up to the universe level. So we're able to tap into universal truths that are seeing on a much wider picture than a lot that's out there. And that's why we're able to see this a little bit differently. But everything else is basically the same direction as what's out there.
Okay, now real quick, before I forget to do this, because I sometimes have a habit of getting wrapped up in the conversation and remembering stuff at the last minute, I want to mention that those that are listening at Shoutcast or iTunes or on your smartphones or wherever, that the call-in number is 832-632-7904. Also, you can learn more about Roar Sheppard at his website, www.roarsheppard.com, which I have a link right here underneath the chat room. Well, actually, I haven't got it clickable. I made a mistake and put it up there in text format, but I'll be correcting that when I move it to the archive. And I'm going to be pasting this URL into the chat room right now. For anybody that comes into the chat, they can find it. And if it's not clickable, just go ahead and copy and paste it into your address bar. His book can be found at Barnes Noble, Amazon, or most any, major bookstore seller. And you can also probably learn more about his book at his website, as well as the fact I'm going to have a copy of it here at my site. I got one up right now at the bottom of the page. Well, not the bottom of the page, but underneath the bottom of the show description for anybody that wants to click on it and check it out a little bit further. Now, getting back to what we was talking about a minute ago, however, I was going to ask you if you could kind of give us some kind of a briefing about what all your book covers, because I didn't get a chance to, get all the specs on it.
Okay. Sure. As I said, The Universe Speaks in Love and Pain, 2012 to 2025. So the book goes into the book starts out with a conversation with Mother Gaia, because that is the crucial point right now. The solution point, the starting point, is that the Earth itself is very sick. She's got cancer, and we've been denuding her trees, which is her protection from outside forces, or drilling into her mountains and earth, which are her bones and marrow. So we don't wish this kind of pain on anyone. But she's in a sick state, and she tells us about the state she's in. And she talks about her conscious mind, which is, she's an evolved being, so she actually has a very high consciousness. But also there's the collective consciousness of the Earth itself, which is our consciousness, which is at a very stuck level. So we talk about Mother Gaia and the state that she's in, and why these natural disasters are coming. And we talk about why the Earth is, what kind of planet is the Earth? What is the meaning of the Earth? Why are we all here at this state? And why is the crisis coming? And then what is the meaning of the photon belt, which is a very important thing we all should figure out. And then what are the exact continent by continent, country by country, what type of crises are going to come, what type of natural disasters are going to come, in which form they're going to come, and how we can prepare for them. So from continent by continent. And then then we go into more hopeful things about what the new humankind will look like, the change in the chakras, the change in the DNA. And then point by point, what the society will look like, what the politics will look like, what the technology will look like, what we'll love. Then we go into how do advanced planets live in terms of eco-villages, various aspects. And we have conversations with famous cosmic beings who lived on the Earth, such as Socrates, Mother Teresa, Mozart, William Shakespeare, who tell us how precious it is just to be born on the Earth and how much support they're giving us. Then we go all the way up to 2025, what it'll look like. And, and then some solutions. So that is pretty much the cover of the book. So this book it contains universe energy, and universe energy is kind of energy that needs to awaken our souls. Universe energy is also the compass. So right now it all may seem like this is all some kind of futuristic talk, but actually if you look at the indicators out there right now, it's all right in front of us right now. And we need to have an honest talk, an honest conversation about what's right in front of us right now, and what are the physical and mental preparations we need to make now, and not have an idealistic talk about the future as if it's not already in front of us. We're on the Titanic now, and we're about to hit the iceberg, and we need to put down the beer and the wine and actually, sit down and make some actual preparations and talk about this. And so this is the kind of book that it's a book that we need to have on our bookshelves. It talks about every step of the way of what's going to happen. So it's an essential book, a guidebook of the future.
Okay. You was mentioning a new technology. I'd be kind of interested in having some kind of a peek at that. Would it be more of a type of the use of spiritual energy type of technology, or energy flow type technology or something kind?
Well, I mean, when I was in South Africa giving lectures, and I would talk about the future, and some people, 2 or 3 different people came up to me, different lectures, and they handed me these big books about the new technologies, and they've written them, and they were about how to use hemp in a certain way. So various green technologies that we're looking into, that's the future. But they said that we're going to start doing this now. I said, no, take that book, put it in the ground, and leave it there for about 3 to 5 years. That's the book of the future, not the book of right now. So place it in there. It's going to be incredible. I mean, although we'll have a few years where technology will be cut off, we'll be without the internet and stuff like that. But then after that, we'll have infinite technology, infinite internet access, infinite energy power. We'll be in a state where we'll be with our neighbors, cosmic beings, and we'll be able to receive information from them. So it'll be vacuum technology, ability to travel throughout the universe. So various advanced technologies will be given to us depending on our level at that time.
So mostly it's just something we're not really ready for quite yet. We'd probably maybe abuse it if we did have the technology.
We're not ready for it now. You have to be in a state where you're able to handle it in a good direction. Obviously some technologies have already been given down here. Various, the stealth fight, technology in the military and stuff. There's been technology that's been given, but when it starts to be used in a negative direction, it stops being given down. So when our mind frames go in, one part of this shift that we're going into is a shift about, we had to go through in the beginning stages of The Earth itself also went through a process of evolution. So the first stage was a state of learning about consciousness. So we learned about religion or about folk tales, about how to be more virtuous human beings, how to have ethics or something. And the next stage was how to grow our thoughts, our technology. And the next stage is now the Earth is in a stage where it's going from material to spirituality based on materialism. And one aspect is we need to not only have intelligence, but we also need to live a righteous life. We need to know how to be virtuous beings in our actions and our thoughts. And so when we have that kind of mind frame, then there's all kinds of technologies that we can tap into and use.
Would you say in principle then that this could be kind of like if humanity took the right steps to prepare, they would be in essence bringing heaven to earth?
In a sense, yes. I mean, everyone's saying the same thing. It is your concepts of heaven will be very different, but everyone's concepts of, you think of heaven, you think of it in a positive light. I assume that's what you're saying. You see heaven as something positive. It's a great paradise. The nature is beautiful. We would live with nature. The animals would be beautiful. We'd live with the animals. We wouldn't try to conquer animals. We should not possess them. Animals have equal access to the world as we do. So we'd have the concept that we are one and living with nature. Then, of course, that would be the world. And if we could have access to technology, then we try to share that technology for everyone. We try to live together with humanity. To that kind of world, then you can say that heaven would descend, the universe would descend, or we are evolving our consciousness, expanding our consciousness to local, regional, national, global, and now universe citizens, universalization, expanding our consciousness to be one with the greater consciousness of the universe. In that sense, sure, heaven is coming down.
See, the only thing now that a person might stop and think about is people that really pay attention to people and the way they act today. A person would have to wonder, could they really accomplish so much between, say, now and 2025 that things would start becoming so drastically different than what they are now?
Well, I mean, you have to really, really open your eyes to the state of the Earth right now. I mean, natural disasters are happening every single day, and they've increased over the past years. Not only have natural disasters increased, but the magnitude of natural disasters, now 7.0, 8.0, even 9.0 last year in March. And we're going to see some heavy natural disasters. I actually predicted a huge 9.0 natural disaster in Boston almost a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and it happened in Oklahoma. So we are going to see some heavy natural disasters to hit America and the rest of the world. And we're also going to see the United Nations mentioned recently that after the Thailand flooding that happened last week, that now we're going to have a food crisis, a grain crisis. Only 50% of the worldwide grain amount is going to be produced. So you're going to have a worldwide shortage of food that's right in front of us. They predicted that in the Business Week, Forbes Business Week last December, when they predicted the price of commodities in the future. So they knew what they were talking about. So you just have to look at the data that's already out there, not in extreme thoughts. Just look at the data that's in front of you, and you'll see natural disasters are increasing, food crisis is increasing, and that just goes down into a domino effect. And you have an energy crisis. So if all these things are start to put in place, then they affect you. They affect you on the dinner table. They affect you at home. So what needs to happen is you need to have an honest conversation about these things are coming at us. So if you don't have energy, if you don't have oil in your house, how will you survive through the winter? If you don't have enough food at the market, how will you survive that? Not in an extreme case. This is happening because natural disasters are set to occur. You can't stop that process. Natural disasters are occurring because the Earth is sick and it needs to purify itself. Also, because of the schedule of the Earth and the schedule of the universe, the Earth is set to go through a transition period. So all of these various variables, these are set to come. And just to push them aside, say, I'll handle them when they come. That's not an evolved citizen. An evolved citizen right now is actually have to be proactive and say, okay, if these things are set to come, they're not the end of the world. They're just a short challenge for a year or two that you have to go through. Then you need to have some basic things. What are some basic things? And it's physical preparation. You need to prepare some seeds. Heritage seeds. You need to prepare some food. You need to prepare some clean water. And you need to prepare something to purify the water. Something is MMS. You need to have an eco toilet. Because the first problem that happens if the energy goes out is if you have problems with sanitation. You can have problems with the water. So you need a simple thing as an eco toilet, which is simply a bucket and some sawdust and a little space outside in your garden, and there you have an eco-toilet. Put that in place right away. And you need to make a community with your people in your neighborhood so you can do it together. So those kind of simple physical things need just to be talked about on a community level. And of course, a mental preparation as well is, how do you handle a crisis? So you need to be able to calm yourself down. You need to be able to breathe. So you breathe in 3 seconds and breathe out 3 seconds. And you need to be able to not have such an attachment to things right now. So declutter your room, declutter your life. These are simple things that I've been saying for a long time now, and people are saying, I'll handle it when it happens. But when that happens, then you may not have the time at that moment. So they need to be prepared now, because it's going to be about 2 or 3 years of some pretty intense challenges to come.
Or 2 or 3 years can seem like an overnight if it's going well, or like an eternity if it's not going well.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it sounds to me like from some of the things you're describing and talking about, like, from what I know about people, these are the kind of conditions that the actual fallout of something like that is usually it brings people closer together. People inherently seem to have this nature of coming together in crisis more than they do separating.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I believe in the American people. I believe in the goodness of American people. I believe in the goodness of humanity. I think people are really good, and they really do come together. If you look at the greatest example of this that we need to study right now is Cuba. Cuba in 1984, I believe it was, their main supplier of oil was Russia, and Russia collapsed. And I think it was before their collapse. Well, anyway, maybe 89 they collapsed. I don't know, a little bit before that, or 89. They ran out of their oil supply. And so they didn't know what to do. They didn't have another source. They're boycotted by the rest of the world. So what did they do? They went to community. They built the community. They dug up their pavement in Havana, and they started to plant, and they did permaculture, and they did organic farming, and they made themselves, they're now 90% above 90% self-sufficient. It's not about sustainability. It's about self-sufficiency. They provide their own food. They provide their own clean water. So they were able to overcome that crisis through, coming together. But they had, a period of years to deal with it. If you don't have a period of years, if it just happens overnight, then although the community comes together, if the community doesn't have anything itself, it's very hard. So yes, I believe in the good nature. I believe that people will come together and the communities will help each other. But please try to think about, preparing in advance. Also something like, various stuff. Solar storms can come, or a period of six months of an ice age or something. So something like that, anyway, just something that has to be thought about, because it is said to come as a part of this shift.
Or maybe perhaps another way to look at it would be, what would humanity do, or what would America or the United States do if we were nuked tomorrow by China or one of those other countries? Would we be ready? So, because people say, well, put it off till the time comes. Well, you don't really know when the time's going to come. Why aren't you prepared for any other mishap?
If you talk about nuking China, nuclear weapons or something like that, we've talked about that for 50 years. It never happened, so we're assuming it's not going to happen. But natural disasters, they're happening every single day. Every single day. They happen in Washington. It happened in Oklahoma. It happened in Turkey. It happened in Turkey twice in 2 weeks. We had the Hurricane Irene. We've seen hurricanes happen right after another. We've seen earthquakes happen right after each other. We saw the tornadoes that swept right across. Did they affect you in Arkansas, the tornadoes there?
Oh, I'm not in Arkansas. I'm in Houston.
Oh, you're in Houston. Okay.
That might be why it didn't affect me, but
aren't you affected by some natural disasters down in Houston?
Yeah, we recently had Ike come through here. We recently had about 3 hurricanes come through pretty close back to back.
Oh, really? So, all of this stuff is a message coming down to let people know that the universe exists. The universe is there. The universe is not just one vague entity that just we use in a science book. There's a consciousness out there. The world we see is only 1%. The world we don't see is 99%. And the world out there, it's there. You just have to have more faith in yourself and belief in yourself that it's there, and it's giving us messages. And these messages are that there's a shift coming, and it's trying to give these biggest warnings, especially to America, because it's the greatest symbol of material success, and also to not believing that the universe exists. I mean, think about it. The earthquake hit Washington, which is the capital of the political capital. Then the hurricane hit New York, which is the financial capital. And then now they're predicting a giant earthquake to hit Boston, which is the education capital. So there's all a meaning behind all of this. And it's that people have to just sort of really go inside and feel their natural intuition and feel what's the honest truth.
Yeah, and I think I was probably wasn't using a real good analogy a minute ago. But, while you're really talking about these natural disasters, there was also not long ago the earthquake in Chile that, as I understand it, actually caused the pole to shift a little bit. Not a lot, but I mean, it actually moved the continent. You might be, I wonder how many of those people would have wished they had had a little food backstashed somewhere to last them after the fact, or had made some other preparations, but they never saw it coming, in other words, and they were ill prepared.
Well, that's exactly what we're seeing. I mean, we've seen the one thing the reason I could talk about these natural disasters is because I predicted them since my book was released. Since I wrote this book back in March, although it was released in September, it was written back in March. So since there, the things we predicted is we predicted the earthquake in Japan, and it came true. We predicted the earthquake in Washington, it came true. We predicted the earthquake in Chile, it came true. We predicted the tornadoes that started in the Midwest all the way to the east and swept across. We predicted them, they came true. And now we're predicting a huge earthquake, most likely by the end of the year sometime in Boston. So these things have happened, so we're seeing the patterns to come. And, the way we've treated the earth till now, just drilling into the earth and having put trash all over the earth. And there's a style pile of trash in the Pacific Ocean, the size of Australia. So the earth is in such a state because of our, lack of care for the earth, that the earth has to cleanse itself. And then also we found out recently that our technologies, like our cell phones and stuff, have to do with shifting of that's why the North Pole and the South Pole, the shifting of it, and the magnetic field of the earth, one of the reasons for the reducing of that is our cellular phones. So of course the earthquakes too are also playing a factor in that. So they're all connected.
So basically then, what is actually happening with the cell phones that has that kind of an effect? Is it the microwave type energies that they put out interacting with the energies of the magnetic field of the earth that's causing that? Exactly.
That's a pretty big shock for us. And that magnetic field is important because all of the animals on the earth, the whales, the bees, use that magnetic field to find their direction. So if they're unable to find their direction, that's why we're seeing mass suicides of whales, fish. 1 million fish were found in Arkansas. 1 million fish were found on the shores of California. 1 million whales were found in Australia. 90% of bee colonies have disappeared. Is all of this an accident? You have to be able to piece all of this together in a very calm-like way and see which direction it's going. It's not a doomsday event. It's just like, so this is the schedule we're at right now. And so without that magnetic field, these species cannot find their way to go. And Einstein said, if the bees disappear, then within 4 years humanity will disappear. So there's all a message behind this. And
that's really very interesting because I'd never really thought about it. It's not if you ask me, it's not the sort of thing the average person does think about. I mean, you can watch Discovery Channel and they'll tell you that bats have kind of like a built-in radar, but yet they never cover what kind of technology might interfere with or affect that radar. And they never really talk about any type of similar systems in other animals. That does not mean just because they haven't mentioned it that it's not existing. It's just that maybe it hadn't been discovered or, it's not understood yet, in other words. So many times when man does things, they don't really know the full extent of the ramifications, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. They just don't. But once they find out that, then they have the obligation as protectors of the earth. We were all born to be the protectors of the earth, honestly. We had that responsibility when we came down here, not just to responsible for ourselves and our family, but for the earth itself. And so once we find out that, the type of systems we use, the type of material we use, the technology we use, is damaging the earth, or it's, putting a species at risk or into extinction or damaging the whole planet, then you have to change.
And which actually, for my way of thinking, most anybody can tell you, if you got a car, you got to take care of it. You got to change the oil, change the transmission fluid, put fresh Freon in it, etc. If you don't take care of your car, it's not going to take care of you. Question being, you got a planet, you live on it. If you don't take care of it, what makes you think it's going to take care of you any more than the car would?
Well, the planet is trying to give us warnings. You can't say it's not giving you warnings. I mean, the warnings. The funny thing for me is I went to visit America back in May, and I said I hadn't been here for 8 years. Been in Korea for 15 years, and I came here and I was just shocked that every single day there were natural disasters occurring throughout the entire country every single day. And it's not like that anywhere else in the world. So it's like there's a strong message because America is so focused on technology to trying every way to send them a message. And when one species dies on the Earth, it affects the entire system of the Earth, and it's a huge loss. And it means it's closer to the Earth having to really struggle to survive. So at this moment, we need to see the Earth as a part of us, as a living organism, and we need to actually try to look, if the Earth is actually a highly evolved being, and we ourselves came here to evolve, we ourselves want to be more awakened and more highly evolved beings, then the easiest way for us to evolve is to try to tap into a higher consciousness. The actual highest consciousness on the Earth is actually the Earth itself. So if you actually, how do you tap into that consciousness? Well, you talk to the Earth. It's not just about, being an environmentalist and, reduce your water, which you should do, or, other forms of environmental protection. Also, is actually go down and touch the soil. We all come from the soil. All the food comes from the soil. Where does your food come from? Go back and try to find out what's the source of our food. Take the soil in your ground, in your hands. Speak to the earth. Apologize to the earth for all that we've done to it. Have a conversation with it. Talk to the plants. Talk to the animals. Pray that they feel better. Apologize to it. Send love to it. And through that, you tap into that consciousness, and the earth heals, and you heal. When your mother is sick, you go and you hug your mother, and you bring her some hot tea. Your mom feels better, and you feel better. So the process to heal the earth and evolve yourself is actually just go and get closer to the nature in terms of actually communicating with it, trying to speak with it, send love to it, send prayers to it, in whatever way you communicate spiritually.
So then, do you think maybe then if everybody on Earth was to turn around and change the way they were doing this here, that perhaps the turn of events could change as well?
You're a genius. That's exactly what I'm trying to say, and that's exactly the messages we've been told. That right now the state of the crisis is so severe that 90% of the Earth are expected to be hit on a very hard level. From 2012, you're going to see simultaneous earthquakes and tsunamis and et cetera happen on each continent. But we can reduce the magnitude of that. You can't stop the schedule, I said that. But you can reduce the magnitude of it through our consciousness. And also, the meaning of 2012 is not only one photon belt's coming, but there are 4 photon belts coming. That means the entire universe is set to evolve at this time. And that the evolution of the Earth depends on how much we can raise our consciousness.
Which I think is a very important thing. And I think this has really been the teaching of all the spiritualists down from all the ages one of the things that's been taught against throughout all the time is people being materialistic and the dangers of it, in other words. I was sitting there listening to you, and the thought, though, that came to my mind was when you're saying our effect and what we're doing that's causing these changes is, well, when I was a kid, I did notice that, for example, it would ice up every winter. You hung blankets out on the line and come back from school, they'd be turned into ice. You'd have to break them with a broom handle or, whatever. Mud puddles would be frozen over. Icicles would be hanging. You don't hardly ever see that. You might get, a grand total of 10 to 15 frozen nights and warmer days during all the winters now, and that's like over a 40-year period that the weather has turned from like night to day. And the only thing that you see that's a common element is the fact that technology grew over that 40 years.
So you're talking about global warming. Is that what you're talking about essentially, or?
Well, I wouldn't say global warming so much as the fact that, it seems like I can see a pattern that the more technology changes, the more the ecology changes, in other words. I mean, you could see it in your actual everyday life if you've been watching it. over a 40-year period like I have.
Well, I mean, that's just it. So now you have to awaken to the meaning of that. It's not just, it can't be, we human beings, we're 50% talk and the other 50% has to be action. So all of us are either realizing what's in front of us, but not doing anything about it. And that's exactly it. I mean, the more advanced we become in technology, the more we've hurt the ecology of the Earth. So we need to think that, so in fact, we are damaging the planet. We are adding to the global warming, adding to the rising of the temperature of the Earth. So then, what should we do about it? What actions should we take? What are the solutions to that? So it's very obvious. So we're just being, obviously those who are, it's very simple. The Earth is a planet that's 50% good and 50% bad. When you go to like a fifth dimensional planet, it's 70% good and 30% bad. And that just goes up for it's like 90% good and 10% bad. So that means that no matter what you do on the Earth, no matter how much you try to eliminate the negative factors or the negative groups or the negative influencing groups, you can't do that. The Earth is a planet where we learn through our emotions, through love and pain and anger and disgust and all that. We learn to keep ourselves balanced and go the righteous way. So no matter how bad or negative something is, we just acknowledge that's bad, acknowledge that, pray for them to go in the good way, then you go in the good way. That's the whole study of being here. And so you can never completely eliminate that negative factor. So that's very important to realize because we get very frustrated by the negative factors out there. So you can't change them. So those who are in the material group or those who are trying to create more technology, which can be used in a good way, but they have they want to protect their rights in the way they see it. If they damage the planet, they don't care because that's how they grow and evolve. So we need to be able to acknowledge that and then continue to go in the right direction that doesn't, ruin the planet.
Now, also, when I was hearing you talk earlier, if you don't mind me going back to the beginning of our conversation,
please, yeah.
I got the distinct impression that you might either have a group or a workshop you're operating out of your website. Pardon me, I'm sorry about that. That hit me during mid-sentence and I couldn't get to the pause button. But, I mean, are you got some kind of a workshop that you're working with people on this ascension process?
What I do is I do offer lectures, actually a series of lectures. You can find some of them on my webpage, but I do go out there and I lecture about 2012 and, of course, the solutions. I also, one of the key methods that I do offer is about breathing, but I offer a very different method of breathing that hasn't been introduced to the West. I was very fortunate to be out in the East and search for over 10 years to find those who actually know about this special breathing. And as we look at the levels of evolution that happened on the Earth, up till now, the brain was very important. The brain was worshipped as the highest evolution there was. So we use the brain to gain insight and rationality and thought. But then later on, over the last 40 years, we've known that the heart is very important. So you've seen the heart, and heart's math has shown us that the vibrational wavelength of the heart is much stronger than the brain. So people now focus on the power of the heart. But in the East, they laugh about that because they say, what's greater than the heart? And you guess it, that's the gut. Your gut instinct, your gut power. Where does a baby breathe from? It breathes from its gut. So 2 inches from your belly button down there is a place, our original center of the body. It's our center point. So if you can place your consciousness there, then your consciousness is balanced and aligned and calm. And you can see your way forward because you're balanced. And it's your gut, so it's got your power, instinctual power, instinct. And also if you can place your emotions there, then you don't shake by no matter whatever comes. You just sort of feel it like a pebble. So we're trying to get our consciousness, our emotions, our breathing, our wavelengths down into the guts, and that's what this breathing teaches us. So up till now, when you breathe from your chest, the breathing is very shallow, so you don't get much power there, much different movements. When you do any kind of breath work, you get the breathing down to your abdominal area, and you pull in more oxidation. And oxidation, expands your breathing 8 or 9 times, and you get more energy flowing, better, circulation in the body, better health, and more power. But the only thing is that when you do breathing from the abdominal area, like yoga or singing or Pilates, it doesn't store any energy. But if you can get the breathing down to your gut, then the gut is the only place where energy is stored. And when energy is stored there, then you use that energy to go deeper inside, and it gathers like snowflakes. And you're able to lower your wavelengths. And as you lower your wavelengths, you're able to actually return the original ability of human beings and actually have a communication with nature and the universe, which is how I wrote this book. So through lowering your wavelengths, you would actually communicate as well and find your balance point, which is the new era we're going into, the era of the universe consciousness, and breathing. So I teach people how to do this breathing. We call it dungeon breathing, and the methods of 2012. So yes, I do lectures and workshops on that.
Sounds fantastic. But I was going to mention that we got according to my clock, 15 minutes remaining on the interview here. And I didn't want to let you get out of here without first asking you've got any upcoming events you'd like to, or new books or anything else you'd like to mention to my listeners.
Well, I'll say that I did place 2 new ebooks on the Amazon.com. One's called The Earth's in Danger, and The Tears of the Earth. So Tears of the Earth is the voice of the animals, having conversations with plants and animals, and tells us their stories and the states they're in and how they're feeling, the stories of the bees and how they're disappearing and why, and the stories of the whales. The Earth is in Crisis is just a summary of my big book, The Universe Speaks, and it talks about the continent by continent, the disasters to come and the solutions. And, of course, The Universe Speaks on the Love and Pain of 2012 to 2025. That's an essential book to have if you want to go step by step for what's going to happen.
Now, is this book, The Universe in Pain, is that a very big book with a lot of pages? Takes a while to get through, or is that a average size? Or
the 2 little books, Tears of the Earth and The Earth is in Crisis, those 2 books are very small, little 50-page booklets on Amazon.com. And the big book, The Universe Speaks, is about 290 pages.
I tell you one thing, I recently was reading a book called Iroquois Supernatural that had about 350 pages. And the one thing I noticed is it's amazing how much information you can stick into 300 pages.
Not only that, this book contains universe wavelengths, so each time you read it, you'll receive it differently. Each time you read it, you'll pick up something you didn't pick up before. So you can read it again and again. Each time you'll awaken to a different consciousness or reality or truth.
So it's kind of like reading the Bible in that respect.
It contains the wavelengths of the universe, so all these spiritual books have that kind of essence into them.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, because I probably have read more than one book that, you'd receive a little more out of it, next time that you read it. I wanted to also tell all my listeners not to forget to come back Tuesday night, as I'm going to be speaking to Joshua Free, and we're going to be talking about the Anunnaki, religion and spirituality. It should be an interesting show. And I want to remind anybody out there listening that a great place to go if you're looking for a drama-free zone to socialize with other people of like mind in the paranormal community. United Paranormal International is a great place to be. They've had a site up for a few years now, social network, and they got people and investigators, whatever have you, all around the world, and they're all gathered into one place where they could share knowledge without all the drama that you see on some of the forums out there today. They just basically want to bring peace around to the world, and the freedom of having your own opinion without being ridiculed for your opinion. In other words. Now, Sheppard, I want to also remind everybody that your website is www.roarsheppard.com, and it looked to me like that was perhaps a blog. You got more information about him there, and you also got links to your books there, don't you, Roar?
UniverseSpeaks2012.com is the website, the UniverseSpeaks2012.com, and then also RoarSheppard.com as well.
Okay, I wasn't aware you had a second website. When I move this to the archive, I'll put the other link up there with the first link, and I'll try to make them both clickable at the same time.
Thank you.
Did you have any, last-minute thoughts that you'd like to share with my listeners?
I'd just like to say that I mentioned a lot about the challenges because they're right in front of us. This is coming from a great state of love and care for humanity. So it takes a lot of It's very brave of me to stand here and do this. I know it's been very hard. It's also brave of all of you to be here right now at this state at 2012. All the souls who are here right now are very brave. And you're brave because you wanted to evolve and you wanted to be here right now to face this challenge. So I ask you to please remember that you're a seed from the universe and remember why you originally decided to come here. There's a reason why. You know, in my book, Mother Teresa says, they said they had this role, so I stood up and said I will take it. So what was the role you decided to take right now? Why did you decide to come to the earth at this moment? And most likely it's because you wanted to share this message with many other people to help them to prepare. You know, your sole reason for being here is that you wanted to cultivate yourself to be pure and beautiful. And when you feel pure and beautiful and rounded, then all your internal sorrows and longings are fulfilled. So I just hope that all of us right now can remember that we are seeds in the universe and we came here to do something very precious and to play a role. And we need to share this with many people so that we can get over these challenges together and face the beautiful future together and all be together as a community at that time.
Alrighty. Now, also, do you have contact information on your website or either of your websites or people that want to send you some feedback?
Well, I'll give it to you now. It's universeroar@gmail.com.
Universeroar at
gmail.com.
Okay, gotcha. So, folks, you have that their email address. If you have any questions or any feedback, you'll just send them off a email and let them know what you think about it. And, well, Roar, I got to tell you, it's been a pleasure having you on, and I think you're doing a fantastic job out there and a job that, you know, really does need to be, taken care of. There's no doubt about it. Anybody almost you talk to on the street will tell you the world's not in the condition it should be in. And, well, a lot of people are really quite worried about it. So, you know, people like you that are trying to bring a little light on the subject, I think should be welcome, in other words. And I also wanted to ask you if you'd be interested in coming back again in the future.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I believe this is a message that has to be out there as well. I think anyone who just looks at the newspaper or the television or the radio can feel that there's an uneasiness out there, and we need to have people playing the role of the compass and showing us a way forward. And I really enjoyed being on the show. I think you're very sharp. You seem to pick up on things very clearly, and your questions are very good. So I was very impressed by your interview. Sure, I'd love to come back on your show in the future. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I usually try to get my shows up as close to the hour time as possible. However, that doesn't always work out like I'd like it to, but I'm still getting my shows timed out for my uploading them to other YouTube and Daily Motion type sites, and I haven't perfected that yet, but we covered the better part of an hour at any rate. Was there anything that I missed, though, that you would like to cover before we do get out of here?
No, I think we've covered mostly everything. Is there a possible way to have a link to the show or a link to the interview?
Oh, yes. I'll be sending you a link to my archive, and if you like, I'll send you the links to where I post them to YouTube and that as well. It may take me a couple of days to get it up, though.
Oh, that's fine. That's beautiful. That's what I meant. That's great. No, that's great.
Yeah, because I got to prepare them before I do it. I had to add the pictures and the audio to the the movie maker, or they won't take over there if they're not in movie format. So they take a little preparation. So at any rate, with that, I'm going to go ahead and call a wrap on this here for today. Once again, I want to thank you very much. And, folks, don't forget to come back and see us Tuesday night. And y'all all have a good day. Thank you very much.
Royce, thank you so much.
And thank you, Roar. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and let's stay in touch. But few people put a little window of time in there. That's like, do you expect that there might be a period of turmoil that you think should end by 2025?
Well, if you look at a lot of the books out there, there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of information out there. A lot of it's coming from various different sources. A lot of it comes from sources that were mentioned thousands of years ago, such as the Mayan calendar, which were just giving a skeleton of what is to come in the future. But if you want to know what's going to come, you need to get closer to that time period and access the information that's coming down nowadays. So we're accessing the information that's coming out nowadays. And what we're seeing is that it's going to be the future is going to be a beautiful period of love and peace and the type of new era that we've all dreamed about. But it's not going to be right away. It's going to be some pretty heavy challenges and pain that we're going to have to go through to get to that period. Yesterday was the 11/11/11 day, and so many people thought that was the day of spiritual evolution. And I wrote on many places throughout the internet yesterday that congratulating them for celebrating that day and for praying for the earth and for human evolution. But sorry, it's not going to be that easy. This is a graduation ceremony for the planet Earth and for human beings. And we have to pass our study. We have to go through these challenges and prepare for them, for the era that's coming. And so as you see, it doesn't just end in 2025. It's a process, and it'll come to fruition by 2025.
So that will just be like a buoy marker, and things should be more or less getting into swing by that time for the way things are going to be in the new era.
Everything will reach its fruition by 2025. The Earth will have reached. The Earth will have reached at least the fifth level. It's not just the fifth ascension. The Earth is actually scheduled to go to a much higher level. That depends on how evolved the.
Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is going to be Roar Sheppard, and we're going to be talking about 2012 in the Mayan calendar. And this is a topic I happen to have a little bit of familiarity with. I'm aware of the fact that some people think that that's going to be the end of the world altogether. Others believe it's going to be a new beginning for everybody on Earth. And still others believe that you can't tell when the end of time is going to be because the Bible says you can't. So we're going to see where Roar is going with this here in his new book. The Universe Speaks of Love and Pain of 2012 to 2025. So, Roar, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. And, I got to tell you, this here is a subject, as I'm pretty sure you already know, is something that has become very popular in recent years.
It is. I'm still trying to put my finger on the pulse of the subject in America. I just returned to America. I've been abroad for almost 15 years. I was living in South Korea, and I was just in South Africa where I published the book and was doing a tour, giving various lectures and seeing the response there. And I've only been in America for about a month now, so I'm just looking at the response and the pulse of the situation here in the States.
Well, looking at your title, I noticed you got a time frame of 2012 to 2025. So that's something that's really new to what I've been seeing. Most people want to say that it's going to be a new beginning.
And each level is different. And we're on a third dimensional planet. A third dimensional planet is a place that's a material planet. And a fourth dimensional planet is where souls go to reincarnate after they die. And so you're basically stuck in this cycle. Now, the Earth is a very, very special planet where all of us are actually souls or seeds from somewhere in the universe. And because we have this strong passion to evolve, everyone here and all of your listeners out there, that's our one uniting point. We have this great passion to evolve, so we came down here to study on a great planet like the Earth. But to get back to the universe, we have to cleanse our karma and go back. And to become a citizen of the universe, that's the first level, the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is when the body is called a semi-ethereal body. It's a half physical body and a half spiritual body. That's the fifth dimension. And from the sixth dimension, you enter into just a fully ethereal body. And then it just goes up, seventh dimension, eighth dimension. Then you start to become more of a light body. And then you start to enter the universe itself by the 10th dimension. So these are different dimensional modes that I'm referring to. Like a planet like Ceres is a fifth dimension, and a planet like Pleiades is a sixth dimension, if you're aware of those.
Well, I've heard of the planets, but I wasn't aware that there were different dimensions, although I have had guests on my show that said that they were, channels for the Pleiades, and according to them, their life forms were more of a astral type of body.
Yeah, as I said, there are semi-ethereal bodies for fifth and sixth levels, and when you go beyond it, it's interesting because there are different cosmic beings depending on the levels. Generally, in the Western culture, the cosmic beings that we are in contact with are fifth and sixth dimensional cosmic beings. The reason for that is because those are beings who've made material cultures before, and so they have an interest in material culture and material civilization and technology. So a lot of the technology that we have on the planet comes from our contact with them. But in the East, China, Korea, Japan, those, we are and how our consciousness is by that time. So it'll be finished by then, but the crisis and the challenges that we're going to have to face, we're already into them now. We're already facing natural disasters now. We're already facing uneasiness in economics, politics, food, energy. So already there's an uneasiness everywhere in society. People are just unable to actually put their finger on it. But if you look at it in a much wider picture, this is a transition that is going on right now. And it's a transition for us to let go of the old civilization and go to the new. And as we hang on to that fight, that struggle is going on. It's releasing tension everywhere. And so that's why you're feeling this uneasiness everywhere. But not only that, is you're seeing that the Earth itself, Mother Gaia, I don't know if you believe in that, but Mother Gaia, the Earth itself is a living organism just like we are. And as a living organism, it feels, it breathes, it thinks. It also has its own will and intention. And as it's been sick for a long time, it's got cancer, it's very ill, and so it needs to purify itself and balance itself. And the Earth's process of balance, of purification, is natural disasters. So these natural disasters will continue, and other types of uneasiness will continue at all levels, and they will continue to intensify. And how we respond to that would be the next few years before the actual Earth begins to shift as well.
Okay, now I heard you mention something of the nature of a fifth ship, and I might be grabbing way out at straws, but when you mentioned that number 5, the first thing that came to my mind was Helena Blavatsky, who mentioned the 5 root races over a period of time, and I couldn't help but wonder, was there some kind of a connection, like you get a new root race with each level of ascension?
I'm not familiar with her work, but I'll tell you the basic knowledge that I look at it as. As we see it, there are 10 levels of 10-dimensional levels in the universe. Places are in contact with cosmic beings from the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensions who aren't interested in material development. They're more interested in spiritual development. That's why you have conversations like what is spiritual enlightenment, what is awakening, that comes from those areas because those cosmic beings are not so interested in material.
That's pretty interesting because I've also had guests on my show that we've talked about string theories and quantum mechanics and, what we talked about the fact that there were different dimensions during all these series shows, though. We never really covered much material about what these dimensions were made of or what they were like. And from what I'm gathering from you, if I understand correctly, is that these other dimensions were, they're not as densely material as we are. They're, which I've also heard that, all material matter is really energy at a slower rate. So they would be like a higher rate, vibration of energy then, wouldn't they?
Well, you're catching the point very quickly. Basically, the standard of evolution is based on energy, and the highest form of energy is based on light energy, on how light it is. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Well, yeah,
so it depends on how light you are, not heavy.
I'm sorry, Rod.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning.
Didn't mean to talk over you. I was just going to say you cut out for a minute.
Okay, so you caught the main point that basically the higher dimensions are based on how light the energy is. And actually the standard of evolution is based on that. So they said that a soul, when it dies, depending on how light it is, it goes higher and higher and higher. So if you have a lot of attachment to materials or to desires or to emotions, the soul won't rise very highly. But if someone like a Gandhi or like a Jesus figure, someone who's very light, or a Mother Teresa or something who's very light in their heart, will rise up much higher. That's wigh the Eastern arts of breathing and stuff are very important, so we don't attach ourselves to materials. So that a fifth or sixth dimension is still focusing on a high